So, what's the big takeaway from what we saw tonight? Well, Shaq dropped an absolute bombshell. He thinks Wemby is the first perfect big man. He just put a wild label on Victor Wembanyama, calling him the first perfect big man ever built in basketball history. Not top 5, not one of the best. The first perfect one, period. And that's from a guy who firmly believes he's the greatest big man to ever play. That makes this statement hit with the force of a freight train. It tells you everything about the seismic impact Victor Wembanyama is having on the league. After watching him help carry the Spurs into the second round, you've really got to ask yourself, is Shaq actually right about this? Is Wembanyama the most complete big man we have ever seen? Drop your honest opinion down in the comments before we go any deeper on this. Now, what's interesting is that stats can sometimes be pretty useless. You always hear that, but sometimes it's true. Like the other day when I told you, did Wembanyama even play in those specific games? I'll tell you right now, no. In the Spurs only win, there was no Wemby and no Vassell. So no Wemby or Vassell in that game. Maybe he shouldn't play then? No Wemby. Now, let's lock in on the context here, because without it, this whole quote just doesn't hit the same way. This didn't come from some random social media account trying to get clicks. It didn't even come from an ESPN analyst looking for a dramatic soundbite. This came directly from Shaquille O'Neal himself, the same Shaq who has built a reputation on never giving modern big men their due. The same guy whose brand is being unimpressed by every 7-footer that followed him. This is the self-appointed leader of the big man fraternity, the one who acts like no one else gets it. And he's the one saying this now. That detail is huge for everything that follows. We're talking about a game where Wemby dropped 34 and 18 in a loss to the Nuggets in overtime. And then nobody played in that season finale. This is what I'm talking about. You analytical guys kill me with this stuff because I keep saying analytics don't tell the whole story. That's not analytics. That's just the final game of the season. Okay? But I was saying those are just records. It's still the regular season, so it doesn't matter. But I was thinking Wemby was out for basically half the season. No Vassell either. Yeah. And in the only game he played, they still lost. Right? And they won the game without Wemby and Vassell. Well, hey, maybe they should trade them both. An excellent thought. Thank you. Meanwhile, the San Antonio Spurs just sent the Portland Trail Blazers packing in 5 games, securing their spot in the second round. Now, they're waiting for the winner of the Denver Nuggets versus Minnesota Timberwolves series, which is a completely different animal. Portland came in young, fearless, and full of energy, talking as if the experience gap didn't exist. It was a nice idea, but they still got sent home in 5 games. That's usually what happens with Victor Wembanyama on the other side. But things were already getting heated before Shaq even dropped that massive quote. During the Inside the NBA show, the crew was arguing, trying to figure out what Victor's numbers really meant in this series. Someone pointed out that in one of the games he played, the Spurs actually lost. Then someone else fired back with his regular season stat line against the Nuggets. 34 points and 18 rebounds in overtime. That is the kind of performance that would make any other big man a legend. And then, out of nowhere, somebody on the panel seriously suggested that maybe the Spurs should trade both Victor Wembanyama and Vassell. Trade Wemby, the same guy Shaq is calling the most perfect big man ever made, all because of one small, questionable sample size. That take got the exact reaction it deserved. Pure disbelief and mockery. That's just records. Okay? But I was saying it's still the regular season and it doesn't matter. But Wemby was out for basically half the year. No Vassell, right. And in the only game he played, they still lost. And they won the game without Wemby and Vassell. Well, maybe they should just trade both of them. Yeah, thanks. An excellent thought. Thank you. Then Charles Barkley jumped in and did what he does best. He went after analytics. He called the whole stat debate junk and said, regular season records don't matter. And, on a macro level, he's not entirely wrong. What a team does in November doesn't always translate to the pressure of May. But here's the thing. Nobody was even using complex stats. No advanced metrics, no deep dives, nothing. They were literally talking about wins and losses, the most fundamental part of basketball. Charles heard numbers and just instantly shut it down. That is classic inside the NBA chaos. But the moment that truly stopped everyone was Shaq himself, because he made it very clear that he almost never gives other big men credit, which makes his praise for Wembanyama all the more powerful. He is the self-proclaimed president of the big man club, and by his own rules, he doesn't have to give props to anyone. He's got the resume to back it up. Championships, a Hall of Fame jacket, and a legacy that people still argue about today. What's your takeaway from what you saw tonight? I mean, I said this to you guys. I think Wemby is the first perfect big man that's ever been created. He can shoot, make free throws, play defense, play offense, and he's a great team player. I'm happy for the Spurs. I'm happy for Wemby. And for me, he's a joy to watch. Something I haven't said in a long time. He's not someone who usually talks up other big men. He rarely gives any big man credit. Shaq set the standard himself, and in his world, nobody else needs to be acknowledged. But then he watched Victor Wembanyama play, and he just couldn't hold back. He broke it down very clearly. Free throws, defense, offense, and team play. 4 key categories, and Shaq believes Victor Wembanyama checks all 4 boxes, making him the first perfect big man ever created. Not just one of the best, not the most entertaining, the first perfect one in basketball history. That's what Shaq said, live on air. The rest of the panel just sat there, completely stunned, trying to figure out what they just heard. I don't typically enjoy how a lot of big men play today, but Victor plays the position perfectly. I can actually get behind the way he plays. If he wants to pull up for jumpers, I'm fine with it. To me, he's the perfect big man. And as the president of the Big Man Alliance, I don't have to give any big man that kind of credit. But you did, because I don't have to. So let's actually break down those 4 areas, because the details here matter way more than the headline. Starting with the free throw shooting. This has been a massive weak spot for big men for decades. Shaq himself shot around 52% from the line for his career. Think about that. One of the most dominant forces the game has ever seen would get to the line, and it was basically a coin flip every single time. Wilt Chamberlain, the guy who dropped 100 points in one game, wrapped up his career shooting 51% from the line. Teams built entire strategies like Hack a Shaq just to exploit that single weakness. And you know what? It worked. Even a modern guy like Rudy Gobert, a multiple DPOY winner, has battled at the free throw line his whole career. Getting fouled used to be a problem for big men, not something you wanted. But Victor Wembanyama flips that entire script upside down. He's shooting around 80% from the line at 7'4", while getting hammered by defenses constantly because they have no other way to stop him. That's not just good for a big man, that's a solid number for any guard in the league. Late in a close game, if a team fouls him, they're not hoping for a miss, they're praying. That one skill completely erases one of the biggest flaws the position has ever had. Now, let's switch to defense, because this is where the conversation starts to feel like science fiction. His wingspan is absurd, his mobility seems unfair, and at his size, he moves like he's 6 inches shorter. Victor Wembanyama can switch onto a quick guard on the perimeter and actually hold his own without getting burned. He protects the paint, he closes out on shooters incredibly fast, and he doesn't just block shots, he alters them before they're even taken. Players get hesitant just knowing where he is on the floor. He can influence a shot from 10 feet away because everyone knows he can close that distance in a heart. Leading the entire league in blocks at his age is one thing, but that stat doesn't capture the whole picture. The shots that players never even attempt because of his presence, those don't show up in the box score. But every player on that court feels it. Portland felt that all series long. But let's be real, a lot of big men can defend. If you're tall with a long reach and good timing, you're going to make an impact on that end just by showing up. Defense alone doesn't make you perfect. The reason so few bigs ever reach that mythical status is because they can't do what Wembanyama is doing on the offensive end. Victor Wembanyama's offense looks like the next evolution of the sport. He's not just putting up points. He's doing it in ways big men were never meant to. He shoots threes off the dribble with confidence, he creates his own shot, and he can still go down to the block and dominate anyone in the post. You can throw a 6'8" defender on him, you can throw a 7-footer on him, and it just doesn't matter. He shoots right over the top of them like they aren't even there. That 34.18 rebound game he had against Denver in overtime wasn't just some lucky hot streak. That performance was against Nikola Jokic, against one of the league's best defensive front courts, on the road, against a team with a championship pedigree. That wasn't an accident, that was pure skill and a complete offensive arsenal on full display. This is what it looks like when a player has every possible tool and knows exactly how to use them against the best in the world. And then you have his team play, which might be the most shocking part of Shaq's entire argument. The history of dominant bigs is filled with guys who were so good, they became the entire offense. Everything had to run through them by necessity. When your best player is a 7-foot monster, you build the whole system around getting that player the ball. That's not a criticism, it's just smart basketball. But Victor Wembanyama doesn't force the game into that box. He moves the ball, he finds the open man when the defense collapses on him, and he plays inside the Spurs' system instead of becoming the system. And that's a huge distinction. He's not on the court demanding the ball every time down. He's fitting into the team structure and making everyone better. And you can actually see the results of that mindset. The Spurs were competitive and made a playoff push even in the minutes when he was on the bench. That tells you something very real about the culture he is helping create. When your star player is truly a team-first guy, that attitude spreads. It becomes part of the team's DNA. We saw that in San Antonio all year, and it's a massive reason we're even having this debate. Now, let's address the claim head on. Shaq didn't say Wemby is the best big man right now. He said he's the first perfect big man ever. That implies every legend who came before him had at least one significant flaw. And if you look closely, that's absolutely true. Shaq had the free throw issues, which we've already covered. Wilt Chamberlain had that exact same problem. And some would argue his individual dominance didn't always translate to team success. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was an unstoppable scorer, but his offense was built around the skyhook and post moves, not the kind of versatile scoring package we see today. Bill Russell was a defensive revolutionary, but scoring was never his primary focus. Tim Duncan was fundamentally perfect, but he wasn't stretching the floor out to the three-point line. Hakeem Olajuwon had some of the best footwork ever, but long-range shooting wasn't even in his vocabulary. Victor Wembanyama is doing all of it, and he's doing it in 2026 against athletes who are bigger, faster, and stronger than ever before. He's doing it against coaching staffs with endless data and schemes designed specifically to stop him, and somehow he is still dominating like this. That's why this whole perfect big man conversation suddenly feels a lot more serious than anyone thought. And if you think that's wild, really makes this incredible, is that Victor Wembanyama is only 21 years old. Most guys his age are just getting by, and he's out here being called the first perfect big man in basketball history by a legend. That's not normal at all. That is truly rare air. But something else has to be said, because the Spurs even getting here was never a sure thing. Victor Wembanyama missed a big part of the regular season. Another key player missed time, too. There were points where San Antonio was just putting together whatever lineup they had left and hoping for the best. This was not some perfectly crafted roster that cruised through the season. This was a team just trying to stay afloat and compete. And they still made the playoffs. They still went out, handled business, and won a first-round series in 5 games. You don't just ignore that. That's real grit from a team that kept fighting even without their best player on the floor. Now, the entire script flips. Victor Wembanyama is back, he's healthy, and he is stepping into the second round. And right there waiting for him are either the Nuggets or the Timberwolves. 2 teams that bring a whole different brand of pressure. This is not going to be anything like playing Portland. Nikola Jokic is the best offensive big man in the game today, period. And Anthony Edwards. The way he's playing this postseason is with a level of fire and confidence that makes him a nightmare for any team. Either opponent is going to push Victor Wembanyama in ways we have not seen before. But the biggest shock in all this came directly from Shaq. He admitted something that honestly didn't even sound real when he said it. He confessed he usually hates how modern big men play. But with Victor Wembanyama, he makes an exception. Just let that sink in for a moment. Shaq's entire career was built on pure power, on backing guys down, owning the paint, and just physically dominating everybody who stood in his way. He had zero time for big men who played with finesse. His philosophy was simple: overpower them, get fouls, go to the line, get the rebound, and then do it all over again. That was his entire game. And now he's watching Victor Wembanyama stepping out to the three-point line, creating his own shot off the dribble, playing a totally different brand of basketball. And Shaq is saying, you know what? I accept it. He even went so far as to call him perfect. That one word means everything. The same guy famous for never giving compliments just looked at Victor Wembanyama and couldn't find a single reason to criticize him. That just doesn't happen unless you're witnessing something truly special. So now, the second round becomes the ultimate proving ground. This is where the game gets heavier. Victor Wembanyama doesn't have to be perfect every single night, but the bar has officially been set. That standard is out there for everyone to see. Shaq, who never had to praise anybody, who made a media career out of being tough on big men, said it loud and clear. the first perfect big man ever created. That's the headline. Now it's up to this next series to show us if it's true under the brightest lights in the entire league. Now, here is where it gets even more intense, because hype is one thing, but these kinds of expectations bring a ton of pressure. When a legend like Shaq calls you the first perfect big man ever, that isn't just praise. It's a giant target on your back. Every single team watching this upcoming series is taking notes. Coaches are dissecting every single move he makes, every little tendency in his game. You don't get called perfect and then get treated like any other player. That's not how this works. The scouting reports get more detailed, the defense gets much tighter, and the game gets a whole lot more physical. And so the question becomes very simple. How will Victor Wembanyama respond when teams start throwing the entire kitchen sink at him? Because trust me, it's coming. Double teams, exotic coverages, defenders switching on him just to break his rhythm. They are going to test his decision-making, his patience, and how fast he can adapt when his first option is taken away. This is exactly where you find out if a player is just talented or if he's truly built to be an all-time great. And let's be honest, perfection doesn't mean you win every possession. It means you adjust when the game starts to get ugly. It means that when your shots aren't falling, you still find a way to help your team win. Defense, passing, court positioning, leadership, all of those intangibles start to matter more than ever right now. That's the level we're talking about. Because if Victor Wembanyama steps into this next series and still puts up big numbers against an elite team, that perfect big man label is only going to get louder. People won't question it anymore. They will start to believe it. But if he struggles, even for a little bit, the very same people hyping him up right now will flip the entire script on him in an instant. That's just how quickly things can change when the hype gets this big. And that's why this moment is so important. This is about more than just scoring points. It's about composure and how he deals with being the focus of every defensive scheme. Can he stay efficient when his space is taken away? Can he make the smart plays when the game gets tight? Can he still elevate his team instead of trying to do it all by himself? Those are the real questions now. And at 21 years old, being asked to answer them is already incredible. Most players never even get this kind of responsibility this early in their careers. But Victor Wembanyama isn't being judged like most players. He's already being measured against the history of the game itself. That changes the entire conversation because now every game isn't just another game. It is part of a larger debate. Every single performance either builds his case or it takes something away. Every possession is now being watched through a different lens. And the craziest part, he looks ready for it. He doesn't get rattled, he doesn't rush, and he doesn't play like a guy who's overwhelmed by all the attention. That calm demeanor is a huge reason this whole conversation about perfection even exists in the first place. Now it's just a matter of seeing if that calm holds up when the pressure is at its absolute peak, because the spotlight is officially on him. The expectations have been set, and the challenge is right there in front of him. And whether you agree with Shaq or not, this next series is going to give us all a much clearer picture. Because at the end of the day, talk is cheap until you have to back it up when it matters. Shaq already made his statement, and it was a massive one. Calling Victor Wembanyama the first perfect big man is the kind of declaration that sticks. And now the game has to back up the claim. Because once that label is out there, every single performance gets judged through a different lens. A great game isn't just great anymore, it's the expectation. And if he delivers anything less, people will question everything all over again. That's the pressure that comes with being put in that kind of conversation this early. But here's what makes this whole situation fascinating. Victor Wembanyama doesn't look like someone trying to live up to the hype. He's just out there playing his game. There's no panic, no forced shots, no trying to prove a point on every possession. That calm, controlled style is exactly why guys like Shaq feel comfortable using a word like perfect. He lets the game come to him, and then he just takes it over when it counts. And if he goes out there in this next playoff round and does it again, efficient scoring, tough defense, smart passes, and a real impact on winning, then this whole conversation shifts from a debate to a developing reality. At that point, it's not is Shaq right anymore. It becomes how far can this actually go? Because players with this skill set don't come around often. When someone starts checking every single box this early, you start thinking bigger. MVP talk, deep playoff runs, years of dominance, all of that starts getting connected to the name. But it all has to be earned step by step. And this next step is a big one. He's facing stronger teams, smarter defensive schemes, and higher stakes. This is where a reputation is truly built or challenged. This is where the league discovers if Victor Wembanyama is just on an incredible hot streak or if he's actually setting a new standard for what a big man can be. Either way, everyone is watching now. Fans, analysts, fellow players, all eyes are locked on what he does next. Because these are the moments that don't just shape a season, they shape how a player is remembered for years to come. And right now, Wembanyama is standing at that exact turning point. So what do you think? Is Shaq right in calling him the first truly perfect big man we've ever seen? Or is it simply too early to go that far? Drop your take in the comments. This is a debate that is not slowing down anytime soon. And if you enjoyed this analysis, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who's been following this incredible playoff run. We have more content on the way, and this story is far from over. I'll catch you in the next one.